Hi, everyone. Welcome to Empower Yourself Through Conflict, our first episode of 2026. My name is Ayesha Adami Makweda. I'm the coach and principal at The Purposeful Path. I help you make connections between your thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors and the systems you're in to create a purposeful path so you can show up in life, work, and conflict with ease and confidence. And my partner here is
Shannon O'Neill. I'm a qualified mediator at the TLE Wellness Center, and I help families and workplaces resolve conflict in effective ways, um, both in the current conflict and also to give you skills and tools for future conflicts.
So we're going to start out today's episode, which is staying connected to yourself in conflict. We're going to start it off as usual with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our collective work takes place in settler communities on traditional Indigenous territories across what is known as the province of Ontario. We hold and honor the 46 treaties and other agreements that cover these territories and respectfully acknowledge First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who are the traditional carers of these lands, as well as our responsibilities to meaningfully contribute to the well-being of these lands and the freedoms, rights, and protections of all Indigenous people and people in our shared community. We also stand in solidarity with Indigenous communities to fully expedite the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada that every child matters and that there be justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S plus peoples.
And in a broader understanding too of conflict, we are drawing attention to the harmful and historical and ongoing conflicts that continue to impact and polarize us in shared spaces and community and have devastating consequences. It is our hope that these sessions help you in your efforts to stay grounded, present, and purposeful, and also give you skills and tools to resolve your own conflicts.
Absolutely. So today's topic is staying connected to self and conflict. And we have a special focus today on emotions, whether you're in a public or a private domain, your feelings affect the actual conflict and how it unfolds, how you approach it, what results you're going to get. And we're going to focus on three different areas to grow awareness and competency. One is increasing your awareness of your emotions. Two is seeing yourself in systems rather than in isolation. And the third is cultivating an observer's mind. So, Shannon, tell us a little bit about how one would increase their emotional awareness in a conflict situation.
I think the first is recognizing and acknowledging that in any conflict, there's an emotional base. If we didn't have difficult emotions or if we didn't feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed in a conversation or in a situation, we wouldn't have conflict about it. So at the root of conflicts are emotions. And emotions have a way of flooding us. And so let me give you an example. Let me give you a workplace example. Let's say I'm walking down the hallway and my boss comes out and says, Shannon, we need to talk. Come into the office. The tone, the directness, the kind of the psychological sucker punch of it is my body is going to feel like there's a threat, like that there's danger. And it is going to overwhelm me to the and overwhelming meaning that it's not going to be just about that moment. It's going to be about all the moments that I have felt like that. And I am not going to be able to discern whether or not the perception of threat, like how intense is that perception of threat.
Mm,
Um, in those moments, the difficulty is recognizing that it is not a problem solving moment.
yeah.
Or more accurately, if you do go into problem solving, you have access to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. If you take more time, regulate your nervous system, you have more access to more options than fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And fight, flight, freeze, fawn is not about resolution, it's about protection. And that's not to say that it's not ever appropriate. Of course, there are times when fight, flight, freeze, fawn are absolutely appropriate and um, an accurate way of approaching the conflict. That being said, about 80% of our conflicts, we don't need to rely on that fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Right.
Um, the quicker you respond, the less options you have in those moments. So as an example, the boss says that if I go directly into the office, I'm probably not even going to be able to hear or understand what my boss is saying because I'm just going to be so guarded, right?
Hmm.
Uh, And taking time in those moments is as difficult as it is because everything in your body is saying right now, it needs to get fixed right now. Everything needs to be fixed right now. Unlearning that instinct and understanding that you do have more time than you feel like you do. And in that time that you take, you're actually going to um, come up with more um, connecting behaviors to resolve the conflict in a way that is mutually acceptable.
Right. And I think it's really important to point out here that, when we talk about being flooded by emotions, we're not considering kind of the impacts that happen to people when they're flooded by emotion. For example, your memory gets affected when you're flooded by emotions. So when you're in a meeting and you go into that meeting and you're flooded with all these emotions, you may not hear everything. You might hear it with a different kind of tone. You might receive it differently, right? So it's important to kind of really understand that your emotions impact how you experience things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll get into this more in the next, and not to say that that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Like
Yeah.
it's yes, it's your perspective in the moment, but it's also like kind of sometimes a programming based on what you experienced growing up or in other conflicts and in other relationships. So, you know, buckets of compassion for this.
Yes. Yeah.
Buckets of compassion.
Yes, for yourself and for the person in front of you. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one because these are gonna, if you depending on where you are or one is in their understanding of who they are when they're in conflict, um the you're we're going to be in these difficult conversations over and over and over again throughout our lives. So a really good place to start is, take a recent conflict that you've had with somebody where you noticed and you got flooded and you don't even understand how it happened, like, and what happened afterwards. And that's when you start reaching out to a trusted friend or a professional and start to unpack all of that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think pointing out how we respond in systems is really important. So that's the second area that we're going to cover, which is seeing yourself in systems, not in isolation, because that gives you that broader perspective of what's happening in the conflict. So when you speak to a trusted friend or a professional like Shannon or myself, and you get a chance to debrief and kind of get your bearings, that gives you the opportunity to kind of step back and look outside of the situation. So step back from the situation and look at what's the system that's in place, right? Because we are all operating our own little personal systems are operating inside a very big external system, which includes small microsystems like your family or your social circle or um, society or your workplace. And all of those things have an impact on our system and how we show up every single day, right? And especially when we're in a situation that is unexpected or things are happening that we don't like, then we fall into these old patterns and behaviors of blame that could look like criticism or being an adversary. and blaming ourselves and blaming other people and not being able to actually work through what's happening in a way that's effective and that actually has mutually beneficial outcomes. So when we are able to take a step back and look at what's happening, we start to see the systems and we start to see the patterns. Your internal system operating inside a network of systems. And that complexity is normal. We need to hold space for that. We're so kind of wired to look for the simplicity, the simple answer. It's got to be this or that. And often it's not either or, it's actually yes and. And we need to hold that space to be able to effectively and responsively and respectfully navigate the conflict that we're in. Even little things like, we're talking about emotions, history, our history, like Shannon was saying earlier, what's happened in other relationships, what happens in our family, what we experience, all of that stuff informs how we're coming to an engagement, how you are on any given day. Maybe you're, hangry, or maybe you stubbed your toe, or maybe you haven't slept, or maybe you had an argument with your partner. That is going to find its way, it's going to seep into the things that you do for the rest of the day, unless you're able to really step back and deal with it. And the same with the larger system, things like intergenerational trauma, things like institutional inequity, sorry, media and social messaging, that kind of thing. All of that stuff seeps in and it affects how we do things on an unconscious level. So this area that we're talking about now is about getting kind of looking at the patterns and starting to unlearn and actually making active choices about how we want to go forward and noticing things like, where can I actually affect a change? Where can I do some self-advocacy? Where can I move forward? Because if the system is flexible and open, there's room for collaboration. And if the system is closed, that's where conflict behaviors, conflict consequences, those things flare up. And you only really see that when you're bumping up against these challenges and you need to unlearn your systemic beliefs, your thoughts, your behavior, and authentically, purposefully engage from your own value system. And that's something that Shannon and I would help individuals do, and we also help organizations do that, is really look at the challenges that people are bumping up against and kind of root through them to see what's systemic and needs to change, and how do we help individuals to really come from their values, speak up for themselves, and help organizations see the blind spots in that as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Um, and let's pretend this happens in this like seamless, linear way, like that we've become self-aware of our emotions. I understand what my emotions are trying to tell me. I can see myself within the system and also how the system impacts me. And then what I would want to do if this is happening in this beautiful, seamless way, I would want to cultivate an observer's mind.
Yeah, so important. Yeah.
So not just an observer's mind of my own emotional experience and my own perspective of the situation and of the conflict, but also be able to cultivate an observer minds of my conflict partner.
Hmm. So that's a little different. So let's make sure everyone is clear. When we say cultivate that observer mind, that's by creating curiosity. That's by
Mhm.
asking questions. That's not by assuming what someone is thinking or psychologically trying to figure them out. It's looking at them and saying, "Hey, I know what I'm going through. What are you going through in this situation?"
It's a pivot away from the person, your conflict partner being the problem,
Mm,
to understanding what you both are identifying as the problem.
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of
So, um, and it like it's a nuance, it's really nuanced. Um, and it takes a lot of work.
yeah, it
Like
does.
yeah, it's not easy. Well, as it was. was, we wouldn't be here. But it's not easy. It's incredibly difficult. But the reward, like going through that work, understanding yourself, understanding that, your conflict partner also has their own lived experiences that brought them into this place, and that neither one of the perspectives are right or wrong. They can both lead to really creative outcomes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, giving people that space to kind of explore what's happening on the larger in the larger kind of milieu and how to navigate it with intentionality and with creativity, right? And I love what you said about moving the focus from the person being the problem to the problem being the problem, right? Then you actually see your partner as a collaborative partner in the solution rather than part of the problem.
Yeah, because the problem is the problem,
Yes, that's
right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
So, um, yeah, and I think, within this like conflict dance that we have, like that is the positive function of conflict, is to it does help bring people together when they didn't even realize that they were apart, right?
Mm, yeah.
If you can keep that mindset while you're experiencing sometimes an intense amount of emotional discomfort,
Yes.
and then have people around you that can support you in believing and trusting that process, because that's the if you haven't been modeled it or you haven't really experienced it, it's hard to believe that it can happen.
Yeah. And it's very hard to identify it and unlearn it as well
Yeah,
because it's so normalized, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And that's one of the things that, for our viewers, that Shannon and I we offer that safe container for debriefing, for exploration, that, anyone who's struggling with chronic or acute conflict, they can have that kind of we co-create that safe space based on your needs. What do you need? How can we co-create that with you so that you can explore it in a confidential way and really get to the root of what's happening with you in those conflicts. And in workplaces, we do a similar kind of thing where we support um, organizations by doing environmental assessments and employee surveys. And we're trying to really pull out what are the blind spots in the organizational operations and culture and help through coaching and conflict navigation with teams, with leadership, with managers to really stabilize and strengthen the organization as a whole. So we have a lot of services that we offer. Please reach out to us, and we're happy to give you more information and how we can help your organization or help you as an individual to be more self-connected in conflict and get better results from that. Shannon, what are your takeaways from today's session?
That it's normal that conflict feels scary and threatening.
Yeah,
um, it doesn't mean that the outcome is scary and threatening.
right.
And there are many things that we can do before, during, and after a conflict that can change the trajectory or the intensity of the conflict, because it is a normal and natural and frequent human experience.
I think that's really powerful because a lot of people hold this idea that I don't want to have to deal with conflict at all. And conflict is such a normal part of who we are and the human experience that it's not about avoiding it. It's about really getting comfortable with the discomfort that comes from conflict and finding the way to move through it with creativity and with authenticity. So I love that. Yeah.
Bound to happen when we're bumping up against each other in the world.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. For me, I think the takeaways are, that self-awareness is so important. It's like a compass, it helps you get your bearings, it helps you navigate, and increasing and cultivating that self-awareness is so important for us to be able to be effective in the world, right? And understanding that we're not operating in isolation, we're actually in a system and in a series of systems that helps also to really look at what are the options that are available to us. How can I be flexible? How can I be effective? How can I be inclusive? Right. And that last piece that you shared about the observer mind, the learner's mind, the wise mind, cultivating kind of stepping back from our unlearning reactivity and being more responsive and reflective are like they're very powerful tools. And when we start doing that in real time, all the time, that gives us back a lot of power and it gives us back a lot of agency. We make better choices and choices that actually have better results for us and everybody.
Supports our well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right. That's our episode for today. Reach out to us for more information on our services. All the information is listed below, so please do reach out anytime. And Shannon, what are we going to be talking about next time on Empower Yourself to Conflict?
We're going to pick up in the last thread and we're going to talk about how to stay connected to others while we're in conflict.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. Be well, take good care of yourselves, and we will see you again soon.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.